Can you guys see my screen? Good. Okay. Awesome. So, quick background on myself. I'm a co-founder CTO of Playbook. We're a ComfyUI hosting platform. Prior to this, I spent about a decade in VFX, animation, 3D and 2D, as well as full stack development. Previously working with Meta, was then Oculus, Xbox, Baobab Studios. And then more recently, for the past few years now at Playbook, very focused on ComfyUI, specifically for video workflows for film. So a bit about myself. What is Playbook? Playbook is a generative media platform for deploying ComfyUI in the cloud. We're interested in extending creative agency, so like integrating ComfyUI directly into those pipelines that agencies and studios are already using. And today we're going to talk about like the cutting edge models for video generation, kind of the basics of ComfyUI, installation options. We're going to do some workflow deep dives, and then we're going to do a Q&A. And then the workflows that I talk about, we are going to be giving you that to you guys at the end. So let's get in. It's just kind of a preview of like the best of what we've seen. This was made by the All Hail They'll Go post on Twitter for a couple of weeks ago. This is from Hunyuan, and you're seeing like this is all achieved with the open source model, and it's pretty incredible. It kind of shows where we are right now and kind of where we're going. So these are kind of the some of the foundational models that we're working with right now, and these are getting dropped. There's a new model every single week, as I think all of you are aware. New nodes, new models. This is kind of on the closed source side. You guys are familiar with Dream Machine, Minimax, and then on the left, just listing some of the image and video models available today in ComfyUI. So kind of just doing a high level of why we care about ComfyUI in the first place. So private models definitely serve a purpose, and they provide simple front ends, but they at the cost of control and at the cost of customization. And we think that when you need to go and like apply these to more production grade workflows, you need that more control and that more customization. So what ComfyUI allows you to do is to stitch together multiple models to kind of achieve that kind of control. ComfyUI, for those who are not familiar, is a node-based framework for working with open source diffusion models. It has a large community of open source developers, can be run locally or in the cloud. And again, new nodes, as more models are dropped, they are available within ComfyUI, within a matter of days. So it's been a really exciting place to work for the past couple of years. In terms of modalities, we're going to focus on video today, but image, video, 3D, audio, this is all supported coming out of ComfyUI. And this was just again another nod to the rate of change that this market is undergoing. This was a new model that was just released 3 days ago. As I was putting together the workflows for this workshop, it had just dropped the day that I was putting it together, and that's always super exciting because all of a sudden things you didn't think were possible are now possible. So with that, how can you get started with ComfyUI? So locally, you can download, and we're gonna package up this PDF at the end, so all these links will be available to you. But you can go to comfy.org to download. Or if you'd like to run on cloud GPUs and kind of deploy your workflows at scale, you can go to playbook3d.com. They are in closed beta, but we're gonna be opening that up in the coming weeks. Okay, so kind of getting into methods of control and getting into a little more of a deep dive. So specifically, we're going to talk about text to video, image to video, and video to video. And then these are kind of the more basics of just ComfyUI. And then I'm happy to expand more at the end of Q&A if I'm sure there's going to be more questions. But text to video. I think we all know what this means. Basically, kind of like taking a natural language prompt and converting that to pixel space, and then converting that to like the understanding of a video. Image to video provides that much more control because you can start. You've started with a flux model, now you're going to an image to video. That's kind of what we're showing here. And then video to video, which specifically very interesting for for VFX workflows. And I think that, this is definitely the future of VFX. Something that would have taken hours and hours of like rotoscoping and then painting out details can now be done in one pass. So that's what's been really exciting there. And I'll try to slow down too, because there's a lot of information to kind of launch into. But this is just so yeah, more basics within ComfyUI. What like IIP adapters. So this is just the concept of taking an image prompt as opposed to a text prompt. That's what IP stands for, and applying like the likeness of one image to another. So you see, the girl, the cat, and you still have that applied to the final image there. Control that. I'll mention this in the deep dive portion later. Basically adding an additional level of conditioning, which allows you to have structural adherence. So you're seeing here, you have either depth, candy, open pose right here. And that allows you to kind of steer the generation. And this is really, really important for video to video specifically, to make sure that your output mimics, is taking the structure from your input. LoRa's low rank adaptation models. They're a fine tune of the base model towards a specific data set. And so what that all means in relevant terms is that if you have a specific kind of IP, you have an actor, right, or an environment, now you can make sure that your generations are going to adhere to and include that IP. So again, super valuable for VFX workflows and production. Okay. So kind of getting into the workflows we're going to look at today, and comparing between the leading open source video models today. So these have come out in the recent few months here. So we're going to go through CogVideoX, LTX Video, and Hunyuan. I've definitely spent a lot of time with each of these. They each have their own pros and cons. On the quality side, I would just say that Hunyuan wins out. On speed, LTX wins out. The lore supporting character consistency, that is something that has been amazing with Hunyuan. I would say kind of unprecedented in terms of the ease to train the LoRa and also the final output. So that's something to note if you're choosing between these. Definitely, if you need it to resemble a specific character, I would go with Hunyuan. Clip length, that's another pain point. This is all this is the worst that it will ever be. But the LTX video is able to kind of push that max frame count. And there are some other workarounds which I'll get into as to how to further push it in the meantime for those longer clips that you might need. And then of course, resolution. There are definitely very specific limitations across all, but they all each yield that extra level of you're gonna get an output that is so custom if you are able to kind of circumvent those problems. And then this is kind of like a bake off. I always find this interesting. I typically use the matrix as the control clip, but you're seeing with CogVideoX, this is like an easy visual display of how these models differ. On the left, you're seeing CogVideoX is really good at doing that full restyling of the input, like the background and the subject is changing. LTX video, just the speed of generation was important here. It does have some artifacts, but then Hunyuan, this is using a Zendaya LoRa, and it is clearly her, and not able to change the background, but that was kind of what was salient. Okay. So CogVideoX, this is the oldest of the models we're talking about. At a high level, right? So these are all notes that I think are going to be much more relevant, or these links relevant when actually running these workflows. At a high level, synthesizing. So there are new LoRa's that were released that allows for using control nets, and control nets are not able to be used. At least easily or out of the box with LTX or Hunyuan, but with CogVideoX, the important part is that you're going to get a much higher level of structural adherence while still being able to completely retexture the scene. So we saw with the this clip with the force and then the wizard guy, quality is not being lost here, but I'm still able to retexture the entire scene, and it's still him doing that motion. You can also use a LoRa for camera control. So if you need to make sure it's going to pan left, pan right, Dimension X LoRa's very useful there. And these LoRa's can be stacked as well. this was another result using a Ryan Gosling LoRa. Again, there's some artifacting, but you are able to you can extend that you can double the final generation if you'd like to using this method. But the frame count again is a bit of a limitation. So links here. There's just a little demo of running that clip. So what I went in here, I described it on like a desert soldier, and set to 49 is the clip length. Run it. I sped this up, by the way. Depending on your hardware, it's gonna be slower or faster. But that was kind of the final. And I had prompted for sand in the foreground, so that was how we got that output there. I don't know what rush again. Okay, I'll check my timing. Okay, cool. So that is and I'll do a live demo for the Hunyuan at the end. So LTX video is next up here. So the speed is kind of the speed and clip length is where this one really shines. I do think the quality is lower, and you do have to be very careful with your prompting. I can go further into any of these notes if people want me to, but definitely using Florence 2, specifically with LTX and then with Hunyuan. So Florence 2 allows you to auto caption an image or a video, and that's important because it creates that kind of like locational understanding of kind of translating. If you know you want the subject to be, it has to be a wolf that's in a forest with green leaves. It's going to kind of say that in a way that the model is going to understand better. What else is relevant here? This is also this specific image with the wolf is interesting because you can use a reference image to then guide that final video generation, which the other two models can't really do as well. So that is of value there. This is just kind of details. I think I'll just go to the this is an image to video generation. I'm using Spider-Man, and I'm able to get some control over the motion. I will say about LTX, it can really vary depending on the prompt. I think more so than anything else, you have to be very detailed. And one of the links here I linked provides like examples of prompts that you can use to make sure you get a good output. Because it definitely it can be finicky. Okay. So Hunyuan. This is the most exciting, and we've been working with a couple studios using Hunyuan, and I think that it's going to continue improving. And new models again, like a day ago, have been released. So highest amount of creative control. You can train LoRa's. There's also LoRa's available to you on Civitai or elsewhere for like John Wick is an example. And these LoRa's can also be stacked, so super useful there. The one thing to call out is that it's good at replacing the subject, but not so much the background. So if you want to completely restyle your video, you're gonna have to use like kind of a dual compositing method, or kind of add multiple workflows on top of each other. So again, and then this does actually not support control nets. So when I get to the demo, we'll see in a second. You do have to kind of vary your denoising, and it can take some troubleshooting. Everything's like kind of on a clip by clip basis. If you have kind of an up close shot versus a far away shot, all these things can impact how good of a result you get out. What else do I want to say here? Frame count, there's some eccentricities on the frame count. It must, that we can get into. It is using a method, so it's not using control net. We're using RF inversion, or flow edit. But basically, it's doing is like a process of unsampling and sampling. Again, I can get into further all of this if people would like me to. But at a high level, this. Oh God, check comments. Let's see. I guess I was not paying attention to yeah. How hard is it to combine models? Like one for, great question. So I would run one workflow to get the subject change and then run that through another to do the background change. So definitely, and then further, I have then like chain multiple workflows together. You might want to just like kind of like add that preview in the middle for like a break point, if you will, so you make sure that you like the result at the halfway point. Yeah, but let me leave the chat open. Overcoming the obstacles of resolution. Yes. So yeah, so higher resolution can So there's a couple things. I guess with image to video, it can result in less motion. But you can okay. Yeah, it can result in less motion. And whereas you'll have more control at the lower resolutions, but there's different methods of upscaling, other which we can get into, which can kind of like get that final quality at the end. Um, cool. Okay. Awesome. I had pre-recorded this, but I'm just gonna go over to this. So, all right. This has been the one that we've played around with a lot here. So what I'm doing is I'm taking the well, I'll run it once, I'll run it again. So I'm taking my little Morpheus clip, and then so I have pre-captioned this with Florence. So what this originally gave me was the image like shows this image shows a man in a martial arts stance with his hands. And so what I do is I had to go in here and change every reference to the subject. To match the description of my Laura. So I'm feeding in a Zendaya Laura here. It's gonna take a moment. I had pre-run this and I'll run it again at some higher frames. But that is how you get outputs. If I change this and I don't auto describe, it might have Zendaya, but she's gonna be doing something completely different. So that's the salient part of this. I also want to touch on, so in the workflows you're going to get, I have picked out the inputs, you have Playbook video, Playbook, let's see, what does it give us? Okay, so exactly the same. So that's at 9 frames. I'm going to bump it up now. So let's bump it before 9. And you know what, let's change the seed to, what did I do with the seed? It's over here. Let's change the seed just so we get a little bit of a different output. It can take some troubleshooting. It really depends on your clip. I recommend running at like 9 or lower frame count to see that you like the results, and then bump it up. So let's see what this gives us. Other point valuable thing here. So the denoise. So the denoise with Hunyuan is so more denoising, like 1 is a complete like that's fully the generation. It's gonna have a high bias towards that prompt, right? Whereas a low denoise is gonna have a high bias towards that input video. So if you left it at 0, it might just honestly be the exact same thing, input and output. So I keep it within like a 0.5 to 0.75, 0.8. That is something to keep in mind here. But yeah, I've picked out these relevant values so that you don't have to go and look for them. And I think I also included this is like a sample input clip. So this should work out of the box. So we'll let this kind of progress here. Let me check, see if there's questions while all this loads here. Yeah. Yeah, okay. So kind of getting back on the resolution thing. So what did I leave this at? I think this is 720p roughly. So from here, you can upscale, and that can happen either in pixel space or latent space. I would recommend just again get the output first, make sure that you like it just for your own sanity and generation time, and then after that go and run it through an upscale. Or if you know that if you lock the seed, you're gonna get a pretty similar result every time, so that's also a way to kind of like control quality. Trying to think what else is relevant here. One thing, I guess I'll note this too. So the new model that came out yesterday, which is not video to video, it's image to video. So Hunyuan being the newest also had some limitations. So up until recently, it did not do very well with image to video. But Skyreels is the new model from Hunyuan, and it does allow for image to video. So that is also in the Gumroad, the box of workflows that we were giving you guys. And so that's going to allow for higher control over, again, you want to use your Zendaya Laura with image to video, or now we can make a lot of content basically. Yeah, we'll give that a second. But I guess any questions on workflow while we're waiting? Get more in at the end too.
In a previous workshop, so Comfy actually keeps all of the flow within the output itself. Is that right?
Sorry, say that. What do you mean by that?
Like if you output an image as part of the metadata, the flow is included. Is that right? The Comfy flow
Yeah.
that we're
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
okay.
yeah.
So I'm kind of curious about. So I come from a background with like Nuke and Maya and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I'm just wondering about the conventions for conventions in terms of flow layout and text and marking things and kind of sharing flows on the subject of flow. I'm just kind of curious how you approach that and if there are emerging conventions that are being adopted.
Yeah, no, great question. And so I know that also the embedding the metadata in videos versus images, I don't think it automatically embeds in videos, or at least as of the last time I tried a Reddit post. Definitely in images. You should be able to drag and drop your image back in. Um, so you can use get and set nodes if you are, so I guess two things. So running native, this is like running this in a native sense. If I'm working on my workflows and working on my inputs and outputs, I can use a couple of things. I can use what is it? Fast groups muter. Sorry, it's a fast groups bypasser. So if I had added, so groups in this kind of setting can be really helpful. So like this is gonna be group. Let's add a group two. Um, so within this, I can add nodes. And this allows me to kind of like turn off and on. Like we're talking about chaining workflows, right? This can be helpful to do that. So if I just add a playbook, let's see, we'll put that here. No. So you see that it's commenting out everything in the group. So that can be really helpful. And then you can also you can there's various different kind of custom nodes to like broadcast like values from one part of a workflow to another if you have like a lot of spaghetti all over the place. And does that answer your question? Cool.
Yes, it does. Thanks. That's actually super powerful because basically what you can do is you can throw a bunch of nodes into those groups and then you can just like click turn on and off. So you could bypass, you can kind of work on different parts of your flow and just shut other things off so they're not taking up a bunch of time or space. And then you can kind of reroute.
Right. Yeah, actually, and I can show if you convert. So if I want to convert this to like a label, so if I had connected this right now, this is like connected, right? So I can turn this part off. I can make sure that like I only want to run the first part, basically.
Yep,
It's really helpful.
that's
And
great.
yeah, if and you're working in native mode, if you want to deploy, so kind of like the difference between like running this in this native setting versus if I want to like deploy this and run this at scale, a lot of what we recommend to use like when we host a workflow is to not have groups and to make sure everything's going to run. That's if you're using this as an API. So kind of like two ways to use Comfy.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah. Thanks.
for sure. Cool. Okay, but so yeah, well, our result came back, and you see that is still Zendaya, and she's following the motion of that. Um, so yeah, you can have a lot of fun with this. I have a lot of lures loaded on here, and then we have a lot on platform as well. And there's plenty of Hunyuan lures to play with. So any questions? I guess while I'm in like a workflow state where I can like move things around.
So, Scott, I'm curious. So, how have you seen this actually apply to production work right now? Like, are people able to use these workflows to like actually create production grade work at this point?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if I can say exactly, but we are working with some studios using this specific workflow or derivative of that. So, and I think it's still definitely like we're not for final pixel. I think there's licensing, to concerns to worry about, but uh, there's interest and motion towards for sure. So yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I'd be curious. Like, what do you see
Yeah.
as like sort of the? I mean, I know we probably should be talking about how the tool works in the workflows, but like, what do you see as like the most applicable like use of of this tool now? Like, what's it going to be good for like in this moment for like agency
Yeah.
fit?
No, great question. Again, I think it's the level of control and like customization towards specific IP, where this might look daunting if you haven't ever seen a workflow graph before. But what all this does allow you for is like all these tiny little levers and knobs that allow you to turn to like get it exactly the kind of output you need. And when you're able to chain multiple multiple things together. I don't know if this was their workflow I had here. So this is like an image to video workflow. If I to generate that image, right? If I wanted to use Flux to generate the image that I'm going to feed into a Hunyuan, like now you see where this starts to like compound. So that's at least my opinion. I think this is probably future of VFX, like kind of just that it kind of works the way that all these previous like Houdini and Blender, we're all used to these node-based workflows. Yeah.
Okay, very cool.
Yeah.
Just to answer someone's question about the kind of information architecture of like nodes versus models versus where ComfyUI.
Yeah.
You go back to that first slide, just kind of run.
Yeah. Let's see. Let's refresh. We're loading. Yeah, let's I guess just establishing some context. Let's see. So
Yeah, stay here. So the conditional methods are some of the methods that Skylar is specifically tweaking within the nodes of ComfyUI. But we're specifically covering multiple workflows that allow you to control AI video, whether you're starting from a text prompt, an image prompt, which is like a keyframe, or like transferring a video to another video, whether like you're replacing the background or replacing the subject. And then I think someone was specifically asking like, where does Hunyuan fit into this? Could you go back a slide to some of the foundational models that we're kind of talking about today?
sorry, which one do you go back to?
The one with all the foundational models. Lots of slides. Here we go. Okay, so on the left column here are some of the more are the popular open source foundational models. So these are not very applicable, and you can't really use these without like a tool like ComfyUI. And on the right are some of the closed source models from research labs like Luma, Hailu, and then Kling. So as you can kind of see that like the landscape is like quickly developing, and there's both like Chinese, Taiwanese, there's like an Israeli, Lightricks is like Israeli based, Black Forest Labs is Germany. So there's a lot of research teams across the world that are trying to kind of create the like top foundational model. Being on top of this it's kind of essential to kind of start playing with ComfyUI yourself just to be on top of it because it's such a rapidly developing space. And that's kind of where we see the merit in it. And then Josh, just to answer your question about like where we have seen this in production. Yeah, like companies like ours are working with some studios to kind of upskill them, and especially some like more of these like AI native studios or these like new startups that are coming across, and they're creating production grade content with AI. But we're also seeing your traditional ad agencies and traditional customers like a Coca-Cola already deploying AI content at scale. So they released a holiday campaign recently that was generated by a AI studio called Secret Level. And then I think there were about 3 or 4 specific Super Bowl commercials that used AI in them as well. So we're very much kind of in the early days of it, but we expect 2025 to be a very big year for AI video in general. Any other questions that we can answer in time, or we can go back to like the workflow deep dive?
Yeah, I think we're now in the Q&A section. I don't think we had anything else.
I have a question about the community that you're building and what affordances you have for sharing. Like, so you create how easy or difficult is it? I would imagine it's very easy for people to create a flow and then to share it and then to sort of build on other people's work and share back. Or I'm just kind of curious how you're building that community or how that community exists.
Yeah. So we are in hosting, we're allowing you to share via link and then have a collaborative space where as a team you can go in and make changes to your workflows. And that is kind of as opposed to ComfyUI, as was mentioned, I think in a previous question, allows you to share workflows via JSON files. So we want to preserve the ability to kind of like tap into that open source community because so many people are making incredible workflows every single day. So you don't want to lose that. We also want to make sure there's like a secure environment where teams can make changes together. So that's what we are building towards. And that's, I think, what ComfyUI will continue to support. Yeah.
So Scott, is that like almost like Figma, like a like that kind of sort of shared workspace, like where people can work on the same file?
Yeah, yeah, and to make sure that like those workflows, if you're using them on a certain production or with a certain, that those are gonna stay stable. They're not gonna, in version control and tracking. So that's kind of what we're building. Yeah.
Do you want to maybe share your screen on the actual platform side? Because yeah, I mean the handoff for this workshop was very much here are the workflows. If you want to run it locally, you're welcome to. The platform that we're building and what's kind of gave some context at the start is that we're building a platform that allows you to deploy these workflows. So if you can switch between the workflow view really quickly. Workflow view.
Oh, sorry, there it goes.
Which is, as we've seen now, this like node-based interface. Before some of us that, might not be as comfortable in this kind of spaghetti, node-based interface, you maybe don't have a background in Nuke, Houdini, et cetera. You might want to run one of these text to video prompts with one of these more simplified interfaces. So what Playbook does is it translates that workflow, which is, spaghetti code, into a consumable, easily configurable UI, which
Cool.
you put the text prompt, get your output out. And we've built these kind of mini UIs for text to video, text to image, image to video. So no matter where you're kind of starting, you can kind of end where you're at.
I was just showing here. So as you add a new input, so if I wanted to add a second prompt to this workflow, right? I can name it, my prompt 2. And when I tab back, it's automatically there. It is cold starting, and what we're doing right now, we're in closed beta because we want to make sure it's the fastest experience for everyone here. But this is going to deploy. This is going to allow you to run this workflow serverless, and then next after that, allowing you to kind of run in a native sense. This specific workflow is using a Red Bull LoRa with Flux to just do a simple text to image. Yeah.
So you can expose the variables in particular nodes up at this top level and also hide other so you can expose what you want that's going to give the user control, like an input for an image or an input for text or whatever, and then the rest of it will just happen behind the scenes.
Yes, right. And the value of that is that sometimes if I'm moving this around, I might accidentally change a value sometimes, right? Or if I'm not a technical person, this is just overwhelming. So that's kind of why we wanted to consolidate this in more of a runtime view.
Oh, and then Peter Johnson asked a really good question about like a use case for this. So we've kind of shown like face replacement with like the severance clip at the start, which maybe you can go back to, Skylar. At the start of the deck. Sorry, no, there's 40 slides.
The deck, there's a lot of slides.
Here we go. So this is like obviously a use case of like, this is kind of more of like oh, cool, like the fidelity is really, really cool. But one of the use cases that we talk to a lot of people about is this allows you to go from like, your very rough image, rough video that you maybe have shot on an iPhone with characters that are just stand-ins, and then do full costume replacement, makeup, background replacement, lighting changes, all with a variety of prompt controls and with LoRa's and all these other kind of concepts that Skylar addressed. So yeah, Peter, the workflows that we're going to hand off at the end of this are actually very, very much applicable to going from low fidelity to kind of high fidelity without having to manually paint every single pixel. So we're gonna, as part of the handoff, we'll have 3 different workflows that have a variety of different differences, but you could try those with your input. And then
well, I think we're in. So what do we have at the end here? So we are linking a couple things. So sorry that I'm just getting 40 slides, a lot of slides here. Yes. Okay. So I will put this up again at the end, but yeah, this is where you can join our Discord. We're going to start ungating access pretty soon. Just want to make sure that everything's we have stability. This is where you can run those workflows on the cloud and also copy the templates that, so we'll have all these workflows. I'm going to get them up as easily copyable templates to run on Playbook. And then in the meantime, if you want to download the workflows too, we're going to link the Gumroad, where you will get these folders, which include the image, text, video to video for these models.
Cool. And so I'm actually curious about the LoRa's. Are they
Yeah.
where are you guys looking for good LoRa's, and how do you evaluate LoRa's?
Yeah. So we've trained a couple on we've trained a couple, and then also Civitai is kind of like an aggregator of just models that people have created. So that's a good place to find Laura's. Um and quality is kind of like how large was the data set, which you can't always immediately see. You'll start to see it when you're running the workflows. That Zendaya Laura was a good, reliable source, but then I had a couple others that were a little more spotty. I've also found that if you have a lore that has a trigger word too, that's really good. You want to make sure you have a trigger word because that allows you to like force its hand in the prompt. Um, so yeah, have that answered your question.
Yeah, no,
When we
absolutely.
can do a whole other workshop on LoRa specifically, because it's like a very like burgeoning space for this, which you know, what we talked about in those foundational models, they range in sizes, but they range like 5 gigabytes to like 60 or whatever, sometimes even larger. Sometimes they're really large, but they can't actually contain every single concept of every person. So the idea is that you can fine tune those models, and the way to do that is by creating LoRa's. Then you bias that towards a specific subject, like Zendaya at a certain age or a certain like makeup. And if you have enough of a data set of that, you can kind of bias the model so that you can recreate that type of image. So that's a specific example of doing it on a character. You can do that with any
Brand.
type of basically of IP.
Yeah.
Yeah. Laura, yeah, I think Laura is definitely an area of demand of interest because it does make a lot of these concepts actually applicable to production. Could you go one slide over, Scott, to the right? I'm wondering if it'll load it. Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So
Please.
Peter, this might also be relevant to you. One area that we've also found interest in this is using diffusion to render. So in a traditional 3D pipeline, maybe we've like mocked up our scene like gray box assets. There's no textures or color, we haven't like applied any textures to our final pixels. We haven't done any like lighting and the physics calculations that would traditionally be done in like physics-based rendering. With diffusion and with one of these like video to video models, you can kind of go from gray box to kind of full fidelity, if you will. So this is a really, really early example that we did of that. But just as another kind of sample of what's possible. And then
Yeah.
Jose is asking about the GPU setup for running Comfy.
Yes. Local or in cloud? I don't know if this is gonna go back now. Yes. Sorry. Is this in comment? Local. I have put on each of these slides, I put kind of like the local hardware requirements for each. So well, the more VRAM, the better, in short. But yeah. I think Ian was raising your hand.
Yeah, you can let me know if this is not appropriate question for this meeting, or I could ask later, but this is a production management question. I'm just curious if you can speak to sort of any boundaries or what call outs to be aware of in terms of like setting client expectations, how to bid shots, what not to do, what can be done.
I mean, JD, do you have any thoughts there? Like,
Yeah. I was actually at a conference about AI and Hollywood production for a little bit, so I feel like I can actually speak to this. There's a couple things. So one, there's the ethical constraints around this and like what an ethical model is, which I think deserves its own, conversation about like what is fair use for training those foundational models. Are we allowed to use images on the internet to fine tune models, et cetera, et cetera? And then the copyrightable aspects of this. So there are different risk adoptions from different customer groups. So some studios, I think, are slightly more concerned about using this for Final Pixel, but they're adopting it for previs and for accelerating the green light stage of like a project when you're kind of in art direction and trying to get creative consensus between teams. So you'll see a lot in like Twitter and LinkedIn right now, like spec ads, because a lot of like AI filmmakers can show that they can create these new ideas really, really rapidly with these tools, but they're not necessarily being paid for them just yet, right? So that's like one thing that we've kind of discussed a lot there. I think what's on the horizon is ethical models. So models that are trained explicitly on content that is like able to be trained upon, and that there's no like ethical qualms around that. So those will be like new foundational models that are coming from companies like Adobe and then others, where I think once that happens, we'll be in like a free for all of like people will be training a bunch of new models, and there'll be a lot of personalization happening.
Also, I guess on shot management and just like we're keeping track of like what workflow and model and LoRa version generated which shot is something we're trying to tackle within our platform. That's kind of like once we get stability, that's like the next big box, because that's something that, you know, I had saved JSON files like in my downloads folder. You try to keep them organized, but it can be very challenging to track the metadata. So that's something that we're interested in, you know.
Oh yeah. I guess to double click onto that, like the show your work aspect of this is really, really big. And like I think traditional metadata layers and tracking of like dailies, and when you're shooting on a camera, all that metadata is like embedded within that. It's kind of like completely different when you're doing with generative content. So that's like a gap that we're trying to fill as well. Of can you see all the different parameters that you use, which models did you associate were used to generate this specific output, and track it all back. So that's
What about just the tactical aspects of being able to bid shot time, production time to accomplish something?
Yeah. Maybe in terms of like efficiency gains from like what have we seen?
Yeah, and being able to confidently rely on those when you're communicating expectations with the client.
Yeah. I think what we found in a lot of what happens in this conversation is like ratio of success to like generations versus success. So I think early in the days, it was very much like a slot machine where you would see like it'd be like 300 to 1 of someone like prompting and making slight iterations to the prompt to get like the output that is in their head out to reality. So you know, multiply that by if you're running it locally, and a generation takes anywhere from like 10 to 15 minutes if you have like, you know, not the best setup, or if you're doing it on the cloud and you have like a really good setup, that could take hours, right? That's not exactly much fast, or that's still pretty slow. I think with like tools like ComfyUI and using 3D and like integrating like these different like mixing and matching these different techniques, you can get closer to like a 20 to 1 or like a 10 to 1 ratio, which is a lot of the work that we do is, you know, how do you apply as much control to the generative process as possible so that it doesn't take you, it's not like a slot machine. You actually have a little bit more discrete control. So yeah, that's some kind of
No, that's great. I love the slot machine metaphor. That's really good framework. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Any other questions that we can answer? We have about 12 minutes left.
Yeah, I think so. Aaron Coe had a question.
Yeah, I was seeing that. Right, the copyright issues. Well, that's again, so like labeling, because every model does have their own license attached to it. So that's kind of where we're getting into with, we want to make sure that's clearly displayed, so that, you know, if you're combining like 4 different models, you need to keep track of what is the net license of what you've kind of created. JD, I don't know if you also have a.
Yeah, I think there's the fun, like the models you need to track what you're using for what. And then the other aspect is legislation is very much changing on this, like very regularly, or like it's still kind of in flux. I think the latest conversations around this is, and I could be completely wrong because I'm not a lawyer, but is that human intervention needs to be like more than 51% of the work, so that if you can't necessarily copyright something if you just like prompted it. Yeah, I think that's like something that's like still in flux, but we're keeping an eye on legislation.
So that actually a question that I have is like I'm on a MacBook, you know, which is not like which is not probably the right tool to run ComfyUI locally. What is the bare standard for being able to run it locally, and then like also like can I run it on the cloud reliably? Am I good to use this stuff on the cloud?
Yes. So in cloud, yeah, that's what we will be the optimal like platform to do that in the cloud once we get that stable. As far as local, again, I think, yeah, per the model, I would not recommend running it on Mac. You can. That actually is that's actually an I was SSHing into another instance when I just ran this in my browser that was not locally on my Mac. So you know, NVIDIA, like you know, something that has CUDA, if that means something to you, like a 4090 would be great, or like an A10, A100. On Playbook, we run on H100s. And I know there's going to be, you know, there's always more being dropped from NVIDIA too. So That's what I would recommend. Yeah. Macs might choke a bit.
Okay, but if I'm on the cloud, I'm good. If I use,
Yeah. Because nothing's happening to your local, your local machine. Yeah.
okay,
Yeah. So the whole Playbook tool is browser based, so you don't even have to, you could still do other things while it runs.
to
And,
be fair,
and do you have
Say it for the-
hooks into server farms or like in order to work on a Mac on a server, is that integrated in the platform or no?
You say it again. Sorry. So work on your Mac. Yes. And then
On it and using servers, like I'm just wondering how seamless
Ah.
it is to have a server farm but working on a Mac using Playbook.
yeah. So like your own server farm.
No, like a cloud.
Oh,
Sorry, I should say cloud.
yeah, that's what we do. Yeah, that's what we're doing. And
Oh, okay.
yeah, so we are connecting to, those remote, the highest performance GPUs that we can get, and then make sure you have not just support for running one, but also if you are running this at scale, if you have like multiple users that need to run that workflow, we're gonna do the load balancing to make sure we can run on the next GPU. So yes, that is what we allow.
okay. I have another question. Where did you see like things like Mid-Journey like fitting into this? Like, what are they? Where are those things evolving? Like, are they going after a different market? How do you even evaluate those groups?
Yeah. So Midjourney is an example of like of a research company that is has a closed model, so they're not exposing it to the public. So they kind of lose the benefit of the open source community hacking upon it and making it better for everyone. And so I think they came out early. They were big fans of David Holds, the founder, and that team, but they're taking a very fundamentally different approach than we are, where we're trying to lean into the open source. We are making the fundamental bet that open source is going to win out in the long run. Running it locally if you need to, or running it on the cloud if you need to, are variable options. So that's kind of where we position ourselves. But Midjourney is a really great place for like image generation. There are rumors that they're going to launch a video model pretty soon, so that'll be pretty cool to see. But yeah, I think it's just like a good place to like keep track of what's going on.
And do you feel like Mid-Journey can you do sort of agency work or production work through it, or like is there the ways to create that level of control? Because I haven't necessarily found it.
Yeah, I think there's like style references, and then you can like reference specific. You can do like some level of character consistency, but I think there's a reason a lot of people have flocked towards open source solutions because the control levels are just even higher, and like
Yeah.
it's not a black box. And I think if it's a black box, creators who want to see and know how it works, like tools like ComfyUI more so.
Yeah. It seems like it's still very much the slot machine over there. Like you have to, and it takes a lot of pulls before you get what you need.
Yeah, but they've scraped all the everything. So there's a lot of styles that are hard to recreate on other models, but Midjourney is pretty good at that. I will note.
Quick question, folks. Quick question. So,
Yeah.
what should we do to I love what you guys are talking about, and I'm totally lost, and I understand noodle-based modeling and stuff, and I have 30 years of VFX experience, and I need to know more. I have to relearn everything. And so, what do I do next? Thank you.
Yeah. Actionable next steps. So in our opinion, and this is how we got started, is we just started noodling with it. We started playing with it. I don't think everyone needs to become a backend engineer and needs to like figure out AWS to like, figure out cloud GPUs. And I do think getting access to or being able to run Comfy on the cloud is super, super powerful because it just eliminates the friction of that aspect of it. And it just lets you noodle and play with nodes and switch things up and just experiment. I think that's the fastest way to like learn with these tools. So yeah, the resource on the left is a Gumroad link. You'll just be able to download 9 different workflows from text to image, image to video, and then video to video. You just start playing around with it, just start tweaking parameters, and just kind of getting a better idea of what things do what. And that's kind of my suggestion is just to really get started and just start playing around with these tools. We will make, so if the middle QR code is our own tool, it's still in private beta, but if you guys sign up, there's like a little form at the bottom, explain your use case, explain, why you want to use it and, where it could fit into your workflow. We will prioritize folks from the workshop and giving them access in the next couple of weeks. And then on the right is our is a QR code to our Discord community. This is where we have our early adopters, some people that already have access to the tool, and is where the rest of our team is. And that's probably the best way to stay in touch with us. Yeah, Rosemary Playbook currently is in closed beta, but it'll be an open beta pretty soon. So,
All right, awesome.
yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go on.
No, that's all.
Hello, I have a question. Is there any sample of a sequence you can show us, or is there any link I can see? So I just wanted to know, like, if I want to make a edited video, so how do I edit? So because you showed us like just one clips, but yeah.
Like a continual sequence of
Yeah, yes.
Um,
Now how long it could be, continued, like how long,
yeah,
how,
that's definitely a challenge. I would still say like the best that we have seen was by this person here. The work we were doing, I was doing recently, I didn't need to get to this level. We're still trying to find a better way to like more systematize like cut between these clips to make sure that the cut is not noticeable. But this person going through the thread, they generated multiple shorter clips and they stitched them together using the same LoRa and the same seed. So that is what I'd recommend. There are ways to blend the cut too, either in like traditional post-processing or if you would like to do that in ComfyUI. But yeah, definitely keep your seed the same. That's a very important thing between clips. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Right. So I guess one of the questions I have for you two is, like how could this community, like interface with you guys? How can we support you guys? What do you need from people like us, which are, agencies and designers, a lot of us trying to like upskill into this area? Like, yeah, how do we interface well with what you guys are doing?
Yeah.
I think at this stage, just start playing with the tool, give us feedback, join the wait list. And we'd love to do some further events with you guys. I think, yeah, this is very much an introduction to AI video and like open source AI video.
Yeah.
Do some more advanced ones on like LoRa's, getting character consistency, using 3D to control video. Lots of topics that are I think relevant to this.
And we'd also like to hear like what pipelines you guys are using right now and how you're trying to integrate, because that helped us inform like what to kind of build towards. So definitely you can also book a follow-up call with us. I think that's in our Discord as well. So definitely hop in the Discord. Yeah.
Yeah, and I, from my perspective, anybody, who's joined today, I'm happy to also facilitate and, make those introductions and help how I can. But yeah, Skylar, Jay, this is like super, super interesting. I love what we're seeing here, and I'd love to like make this sort of like the first of many conversations. And also like I would love to figure out some way of getting maybe my community just even started like playing with a project, maybe even like working together to see if we can, kick the tires on what you're doing. And, I think that might be a really interesting way to find new opportunities and figure out how we can help you guys evolve what you're doing too.
Yeah, that'd be great. I like that.
Right. Awesome. Well, thanks so much for joining me today. I mean, it's, fantastic to see what you're doing. We'll hopefully keep the conversation going. If you guys are in LA, as some of you are, feel free to join me tomorrow at the studio of Daniel Conager, or Monday down on the Third Street Promenade. But have a wonderful weekend, everybody. We'll keep the conversation going.
Awesome.
Thanks, everyone.
All right. Thanks so much, Scott. Thanks, JD.
Thank you. Bye.